Vancouver condos to avoid in 2026. If you are anywhere close to writing an offer on a Vancouver condo in the next 30 days, stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to save some of you from making a six-figure mistake. Vancouver condo market in 2026 is sitting at sales levels we've not seen since the 1990s. Composite benchmark prices are down nearly 7% year over year. BC mortgage delinquencies are climbing while the national rate is stabilized. BC and Ontario are the only two provinces still moving in the wrong direction per the Canadian Bankers Association. New lease rents in Vancouver dropped 3.6% year over year according to Q1 of this year, which means the rental income math that most condo investors were leaning to make their numbers work has actually compressed. And right now, there's a record 204,000 rental units under construction across Canada. That's 8% of the entire existing rental stock, which means even if rents do not fall further, they cannot meaningfully rise either. The supply pipeline is just that overwhelming right now. That's the macro picture that we are talking about in 2026. And here's what it actually means for you in dollars if you get this wrong. If you buy the wrong condo in Vancouver this spring, you are not looking at a soft landing. You're looking at a building where the Strata Corporation is one assessment away from a $50,000 bill landing in your mailbox just a few months later after closing. You're looking at a unit where the bank's appraiser comes in low at completion, which can blow up your financing on a pre-sale that you signed back in the peak prices of 2022. You're looking at a rental market where the income that was supposed to subsidize your carrying costs has structurally collapsed. And you're looking at a buyer pool for resale that is compressed right alongside of it. So let's get into the traps. Trap number one, buildings from the Leaky condo era. Vancouver had a major envelope crisis roughly 1985 to the year 2000. Buildings from that era were constructed with face-sealed stucco, so no rain screening behind the cladding. And people who had never actually tried to keep British Columbia rain out of a wood frame box for 30 years. The result was a leaky condo crisis, which bankrupted a generation of Vancouver Strata Corporation and cost owners hundreds of thousands of dollars in special assessments. The scale of it was absolutely massive. It almost bankrupted the city of Delta. It was absolutely wild here. Roughly 45% of all strata units built in BC between 1985 and 2000 had building envelope problems. Some of the buildings went through a repair cycle in the late 1990s and early 2000s. The ones that did it properly, fully rain screened, proper waterproofing, are in reasonably good shape today. The ones that did a partial repair, a budget repair, or no repair at all, they are now into their second envelope cycle. And the second cycle is significantly more expensive than the first due to a lot of factors. The depreciation reports that I'm pulling on these buildings show envelope projects quoted at $500,000, upwards of $3 million. Strata fees look suspiciously low on the listing because the Strata has been deferring work, and that's a nightmare that you don't want to walk into. Contingency reserve fund balance is sitting under $200,000, which is nowhere near enough for an average sized building to cover a single envelope crisis, let alone the secondary work that comes with it. Special assessment is incoming on those buildings inside 24 months. And here's where that compounds specifically in 2026. BC consumer insolvencies are at a 12-month rolling basis, are now at the highest levels ever recorded in history per the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, which means when that special assessment lands, when that $50,000 letter hits your mailbox, half your neighbors can't pay it. The building defers the work. The building gets materially worse over time. This is an absolute nightmare. So what do you look at for when you tour one of these buildings? Walk the perimeter before you go inside. Look at the base of each floor level for a horizontal metal flashing line. That's the visual signature of a proper rain screening system. If you don't see that flashing on a building from 1985 to 2000 era, it's not properly rain screened, which means it's still running on the original face-sealed stucco system, which is just a matter of time before it fails. Look for staining at the window heads. You can look for staining at the window heads, paint blistering, the soffit to fascia transition, stucco repair patches that don't match the surrounding finish. These are signs of water intrusion events that may or may not have been previously addressed. Then pull the Form B and depreciation report. Buyers, it's your responsibility to look at all this stuff. Check the contingency reserve fund balance against the upcoming envelope work line item because everybody in BC has to have a depreciation report by now. If there's a big expense coming and the timeline on that work is under 3 years, you are not buying a condo. You are buying a special assessment with a unit attached to it. You need to pass on this unit unless it's in your budget and you can afford an expense coming up in the future. Trap number two, investor-heavy towers. This is the trap that has changed the most. Whether it's Burnaby, Metrotown, or any building anywhere in Metro Vancouver, where more than half the units were sold to investors during 2021 and 2023 pre-sale craze, I'm telling you to effectively avoid them completely. Last year, rental income math was tight. This year has gone from tight to negative. The national rental vacancy rate just hit 5.1% per CMHC. That's the 9th straight quarter of an increase. There are a record 240,000 rental units under construction right now in Canada. And in Vancouver specifically, new lease rents dropped 3.6% year over year. The cash flow math justified those Metrotown purchases at $1,500 a square foot in 2022. That math is not working anymore. It's not even close, which means those investors are listing their units because they have to sell. This means Metrotown towers with 200 units suddenly has 35 active listings competing against each other at the same time. And that is not a good situation to be in if you're a regular owner-occupied unit. A lot of these places are having appraisals come in lower than those comparables because they see the distress. Here's a second order effect that nobody in the Vancouver real estate community is really talking about. Non-permanent residents, meaning international students, temporary foreign workers, the people who actually fill investor units as renters. That's down 76% from the 2024 admission peak per Stats Canada. The demand for these rentals is so far less than it was 18 months ago. It's a drastic change. The investor who bought a Metrotown one bed, one bath at $1,500 a square foot in 2022, qualifying on a 2.7% variable rate with a $3,500 a month rental projection, is now staring at a rate potentially as high as 5% and achievable rent closer to $3,100. And the value of that unit is way below what they bought it at. That investor is your competition on the resale shelf. So what do you look for? Ask the listing agent directly what percentage of the building is owner-occupied versus rented. The 4B doesn't always tell you this perfectly, but the listing agent might have a better idea. The answer is below 60% occupied. The resale market in that building is fundamentally weaker than what you think. So to do your due diligence and homework, pull the rental comps on that building over the last 12 months if you can. If the trend is down 3 to 6% year over year, the income math for any new buyer doesn't really work. Look at the floor plan mix too. If the building is dominated by 500 to 600 square foot one bedroom and studios, it was a purpose-built condo tower for the investor rental market, not for owner occupiers, which means your future buyer pool is going to be dominated by the same investors who are currently selling and not buying. This is a structurally weak pool to be selling in. It is so difficult. Trap number 3, downtown towers from the 2021 to 2023 pre-sale cycle. These are the buildings where peak price pre-sale buyers are now staring at a completion appraisal that is $200,000, sometimes $300,000 below their original contract price. And the financing rules at completion are way tighter than they were at signing. The rental market just can't rescue them because of the supply tsunami wave that we've been hit with and non-permanent resident collapse. Those two tied together is creating something we haven't seen. So a lot of people are walking away from their deposits and they're potentially being sued by developers for the resale price difference or completing into a unit worth way less than they actually owe. Let me talk about the math so this actually is concrete for you so you can understand it. You bought a pre-sale unit downtown in 2022 for roughly $1,500 a square foot, 700 square feet. Your contract price, $1,050,000. You put down 10% at signing, $105,000, with the balance due at completion in 2026. So the building completes this year. The bank's appraiser comes in at $1,200 a square foot, which I would argue is actually generous given the market we're in right now. Not putting the appraised value of that condo at $840,000. The bank lends on the appraised value, not the contract value. So they will lend you 80% of $840,000, which is $672,000. Your contract requires you to come up with $945,000 to hit that $1,050,000 because you already put $105,000 down. So $672K from the bank, $105 from your deposit, and the rest is cash. If you can't find that money, you walk away from your deposit, you're going into financing default or you're trying to assign the contract to somebody else at a massive loss. And developers are not exactly making that easy right now. The takeaway here is that we're now in a market in Vancouver where the pre-sale buyers can't complete on some of these projects that they purchased into years ago. This should fundamentally change how you read every pre-sale assignment listing in this city. Trap number 4, pre-sale assignments with no ground broken. The hole has not been dug. No construction insurance is in place. No project financing milestones have been hit. There's no real recourse for you as a buyer if the developer files for protection. This is a massive risk in the real estate market right now in Vancouver. Unsold developer inventory is at record highs across BC. Consumer insolvencies are at an unprecedented level. Vancouver lawyers are now going on CTV News on the record telling buyers their best legal option might be to walk away from pre-sale contracts and declare bankruptcy if necessary. That is not a rumor. This is happening. That is a real lawyer on local news telling buyers their best option is bankruptcy. That's wild. The assignment market for unbroken ground projects is essentially dead. Nobody's buying into that because buyers will not touch them and banks will not finance them. Your deposit is sitting in a trust account while the project clock runs out. And the litigation risk is what? And there's real recourse for this. You can go into litigation. You can get sued, and buyers don't understand this. If a developer cancels a project, your deposit comes back eventually, maybe, after the project's lender works through the receivership process. But if you cancel the contract, the developer can sue you for the difference between the original listing contract price and the eventual resale price of the unit. And right now, those resale prices are below original contract values across the entire city. If somebody's trying to assign you a pre-sale unit in a building where the foundation has not been poured yet, my answer is no before you even tell me the price. Trap number 5, Strata corporations with reserve fund below $200,000. That, of course, is based on how many units are in the building. If it's a 14-unit building, this isn't exactly relevant to that. So specifically, any building where the depreciation report is flagging envelope or roof work in the next 3 to 5 years, this is a piece of due diligence that gets skipped most consistently in the city. Everyone is so focused on the price and the rate that you're getting and how it looks when you go to see the property. The actual ticking time bomb in Vancouver condos is the gap between what the depreciation report says the building needs in the next 5 years and what the Strata Corporation actually has saved in their contingency reserve fund or special contingency reserve fund. Form B will give you the contingency reserve fund balance in one number. The depreciation report tells you the upcoming work. Subtract one from the other before you write any offer. Here's a real example. Mid-rise wood frame building, 60 units, one bedroom listed at $650. The form B shows a contingency reserve fund balance of $120,000. The depreciation report shows envelope of $800,000 in year 2 and a roof replacement of $250,000 in year 3, and that's a conservative number. So total upcoming work for this, $1,050,000. Reserve fund only has $120,000. The gap is $930,000. Divided across by 60 units, that's roughly $15,500 per unit. You're looking at a $15,500 special assessment in the next year or 2, and another $4,000 to $5,000 in year 3. And on top of whatever strata fee increases are coming, because that's very likely to go up. Now, the one benefit of getting all this work done is it does help future resale. So if you get the work done and you sell it in 5 or 10 years, you're going to see that money back. Hopefully, if the market flattens out here, maybe even goes up at some point, who knows? Now, if the strata can't get a certain amount of numbers to vote to fund the work gets deferred, the building deteriorates further, and eventual assessment gets bigger. Trap number 6, building with active or pending litigation. Whether it's a lawsuit against a developer over deficiencies, or between the strata and a contractor, or between two owners that has escalated into a strata-wide claim, litigation does several things to a condo building that you need to understand before you buy in. First, it can make the building uninsurable with certain carriers, which means strata insurance premiums can double at the next renewal and strata fees spike at the next AGM. Second, some banks flat out exclude litigated buildings from their approval matrix, which shrinks your future buyer pool when you eventually go to sell. Third, a 2-year lawsuit can add 15 to 30% to a building's annual operating budget and legal fees alone. Fourth, the depreciation report often gets paused or defunded during active litigation because nobody on the strata wants to commit capital to projects while the lawsuit is still defining the financial picture. So if you're buying into a building where insurance is unstable, the lender pool is shrinking, the operating budget is bleeding, legal fees, and the capital plan is on hold, that is not a great situation to be in. None of that will be in the listing description. The Form B does disclose litigation, so make sure you're doing your due diligence with your agent to find out what is exactly going on. Most listing agents aren't going to bring that up at the open house. So make sure you're asking the listing agent directly whether or not there's any active or pending litigation involving a strata corporation, and ask them to point you to the disclosure section of the Form B. If they're uncomfortable asking, if they brush it off, if they're uncomfortable asking, if they brush off the question, if they tell you just ask the strata manager, that's your sign to walk out of the elevator and skip the unit entirely. Now, the downstream effects of strata litigation are slow. You'll not feel the pain in 1 year. You're going to feel it in 3 or 5 years when the insurance renewal triples in the strata field. You'll probably feel the pain in year 3 or 5 when insurance renewal doubles, the strata fees spike, and the bank passes on your financing. I want to thank everybody for watching. This has been a lot of fun coming out with these videos on YouTube. I appreciate you all so much. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. More videos coming soon. We'll see you on the next one.